Bonjour, hello, guten Tag, bienvenue, ni hao, and well, my beer has ice cubes in it. I guess that means it's cold. A little too long in the fridge. Belgian moon today. Once again. Everything looks good. Hello, everybody. Let's turn this on. So hey everybody, welcome aboard. And yeah, you are just that'd be nice like this, so you guys could see better. Welcome aboard. This is the Shortwave radio show. We are live from Montreal, Quebec, Canada, and it's Friday. Yep, Friday, 2000 hours UTC is the time we are here every week. And of course, we are here to entertain and have fun and just, you know, enjoy the cool moments of radio geeking. And of course, we are from Montreal, Quebec, Canada. A very warm Montreal, Quebec, Canada. It's, according to this, it's 30 degrees Celsius outside, or 29.5, which is upper 80s. And it's been a hot week, pretty hot week. We got a heat warning. We got heavy thunderstorm watch. Though there's not a lot of static crashes, so I don't know. For now, it seems to be okay. What else? Let me just check if there's thunderstorms nearby. Oh, heat warning and severe thunderstorm watch is pretty much what we have. And yeah, there's some stuff lurking around. If you look at the radar, it's a colorful radar that we have, so you guys can see with the little red dot in my location and the thunderstorms coming through, but there's no static crashes at all. So it's maybe just like heavy rain. So anyways, my name is Gilles, located in Montreal, Quebec, Canada, northeast part of North America. We are here every Fridays, 2000 hours Universal Time. Hope you have a nice show and you enjoy the show. There's a beautiful chat room with beautiful to have fun. Today we will talk about international broadcasters, the ones that I listen to. And of course, I've had a few people ask me, you know what, I like your channel, but I would like to know what you listen to, and I see videos of stations that you actually tune in, and a lot of people seem to be on the same kind of unfortunate event of not having or not receiving any stations. And of course, we'll try to give a little pointers of what you can do to try to improve your shortwave listening. One thing for sure, the clock here is in UTC time, and it's set. I actually did set it with CHU time signal here, so that is perfect time. So hey everybody, welcome aboard. Hope you enjoyed the show today. Simplio, nice to have you on board. Nick Amando from Romania, nice to have you here. Radioactive from Oregon, USA, nice to have you on board. Matambali in Colorado, nice to have you here. Jerry DX, nice to have you on board. Hey, you're soon to get 100 subs. If you guys want to sub to Jerry DX's channel. Cheers. Cheers, cheers. Simplio's from Oklahoma City. Nice to have you on board. What do we have? Terry Cook from Montana. Nice to have you here. Simplio, proud new owner of Radio R108. Hope you love it. I love mine. It's a great radio. Great radio. So I have a nice dip in the pool, Jerry. Simply says bought it mainly for the aircraft band, which it does well for. I've been monitoring CB with it too, and use my Texan PL600 for SSB stuff. Cool. You're now a complete station. You can tune to pretty much anything. Shortwave, both in AM and single sideband, and plus you got the airband on the radio. Pretty cool. It is it is a problem that I have mentioned in my reviews of both the RadioWow R108 and the XH Data D808. Volume is not super high. It could be better on these radios, unfortunately. They would need to do a better job at having that, for sure. Something's weird. I saw the count go up. Some people must have problems with the streaming, because they went up to 90, back down to 55. So some of you might be having some issues, I guess. I'm gonna try something. There's something weird here, guys. I'm just going to stop and because there's something weird. Because I do get the green, I got a green bar, and it usually always says live streaming for some reason. Even though it says live, it doesn't say live streaming for some reason. Anyways, I hope it's okay for you guys. It's kind of weird what's happening. WOHP 1390, good afternoon. Nice to have you on board, my friend from Ohio. W8PRR, and he says that the screen name is a radio station I started working at when I was 14 years old. Wow, cool. Does WOHP 1390 still work, or is it still in the air? Keegan, nice to have you on board from Arkansas. Hope you guys had a nice 4th of July celebration. We have. Let me just go down here. Rufus Newt, nice to have you on board from the sweltering Laurentian Valley, Ontario. Back home this week. Cool. Matt, MDK2, nice to have you on board. Pretty cool to have you here. We have. Let me try to go to. What is the latest? Kevin Wood, nice to have you on board from Nova Scotia. PLF Radio, bonjour et bienvenue de la France. Toujours un grand plaisir de vous avoir parmi nous. What else do we have? Just go down here. Yeah, I guess there's some buffering because I see the counter like moving up and down. We have. Let's go down here. Bob, guys, nice to have you here, Bob. Then 2DET from Long Beach, New York. Glenn Britton, nice to have you here. My friend from Toronto, 31 Celsius, pretty much same temperature here in Montreal. Jeff King from Jacksonville, Florida, nice to have you here. John Galt, nice to have you on board from El Paso, Texas. René Charbonnier, bonjour, hey, nice to have you here from the Netherlands. I just bought an Alinco DXR8E. What do you think of this receiver? I've never used it myself, but I've seen a lot of comments and a lot of people saying that they actually love the radio. Now it has a few shortcomings from what I see, but for the most part, what I have read on it is that it is a very decent radio. Very decent radio. David Arden, nice to have you here. KJ4CMY, no problem. Yeah, totally understand. With thunderstorms around, being careful. Brian Penny, nice to have you on board. Paul is actually, it's so funny because it's air conditioned inside. But Paul insists on sleeping on the balcony outside where it's 30 degrees instead. And he's all like laid out, like, you know, you see that he's kind of hot, and you're like, why are you not coming in? So it's crazy. Al Mesa, nice to have you here. It says 90 degrees here in central Ohio. Nice to have you on board. And Brian Penny is from Cape Cod, Massachusetts. And it is hot here too. Very hot and humid today, actually. Jeff King says made it to 100 degrees Fahrenheit in Florida. I was reading an article an hour ago of Anchorage, Alaska, reaching 32 degrees Celsius, 32 point something, that was like 90 Fahrenheit, and that it's the first time since they take measures that they reach that temperature. It was just crazy. Sean Fahey, nice to have you on board, my friend. Pretty cool. Andy RC, nice to have you on board, my friend. Ray in Clayton, North Carolina, nice to have you here. Stephen Wood, nice to have you on board, my friend. What else do we have? Yeah, there's some buffering because I see that the counter is going up and down all the time. Here, my output is good. I seem to, I don't know. We'll see what happens. I'll try to do something. I'll try to briefly, if I see that it still has problems, sometimes I'll disconnect and reconnect. Dutch, cool. William Helms from Florida, nice to have you on board, my friend. Mickey Delmonge, nice to have you here from Alberta. Just around a short while before heading to VE6JY site to catch up with some other DXers from out of town. Cool. Sure, I'm going to have a lot of fun with that. I am expected to go to Fast Loads. For those that know Fast Load in the chat room, I'm expected to go to Fast Loads home tomorrow. We're setting up Dipole, and we're going to do some radio at his place. I'm not sure yet, guys, but I might, if things go well, I might actually do maybe a small live stream from there. We'll see if we can set it up or not. So hang in there for tomorrow. We might, who knows, have a little something. If not, there's going to be a few videos. We're going to kind of show Fastload's man cave and antennas. I think that's going to be nice to see. Somebody else's setup also. John Pickney, nice to have you on board from Northern Virginia. What else do we have? Mick, nice to have you on board. And things seem to be a little more stable now as the number of viewers is actually moving up. So maybe it's gotten a little more stable now. Maglone, nice to have you here. Radio Telescope, nice to have you on board M0ISA. Pretty cool. Rock the Tech Guy, nice to have you here. DE1 DJK, nice to have you on board, my friend. From Germany. What else do we have? PLF Radio. Yeah, here in Quebec, Canada Day is kind of a quiet thing. It's the rest of Canada here. It's a little complex, you know. In the province of Quebec, big festivities are really the June 24th, whereas the Quebec holiday. That's the big one here. There's some stuff happening around town on July 1st, but it's more quiet. It's not the same thing. But went to a friend's house that we haven't seen for a long time, so it was a lot of fun. Al Mason says, after some experimenting unplugging power supplies, I've determined my neighbors have a very noisy one, trashing various spots in the spectrum. That, unfortunately, is the sad part. When the noise that you have comes from somebody else, and you can't really do nothing about it. Keith Logan, nice to have you on board, my friend. Yeah. Here everything is green, and you know, when you guys say it's buffering or when I see unusual stuff, I always look at my stream and my stuff in both Wirecast and both and YouTube tell me that the stream is perfect. So it has to do something with their own thing. With YouTube having some problems. Joe Topinka, nice to have you here from Chicago. 96 degrees, very humid, and wow, that's hot. Listening for code practice from W1AW, but don't hear anything right now. Maybe they extended their holiday. W1AW still sends out code practice, yes. And technically it's supposed, because it's automatic. It's an automatic process, so technically they should still be sending out the code practice. Let me just check out here if I'm just gonna check out here the schedule. So it's just a question of listening in to the W1AW schedule. So okay, here it says that it's a Monday to Friday thing. So it is possible that because of the holidays it could be off. But you should have some code practice in UTC from 13 to 16 Zulu, 20 Zulu to 23 Zulu, and apparently 0 to 03 Zulu. So that means they should be transmitting now, from what I see. So let's just check that out here. Okay, code practice. Code practice. It says here 20 Zulu, 4 p.m. Let's check it out. Okay, so today is Friday, and it's a fast code practice, not a fat code practice. So let's try 7047. The curiosity, 7047. Anything happening here? Yeah, I guess they're on holiday. 3581. Yeah, they are off 14047. Yeah, I think they're on holiday. It's probably what's happening, because I don't see any code here. So it's probably off for the 4th of July celebration. They're probably off, which is weird. You know, they should leave it on. Why? Oh, because I know why. I said they should leave it on. But I do think that the amateur license requirement means that there's always an operator that needs to be there when it happens. So, of course, if they have nobody at the station, it can't transmit automatically, I believe. Ha! I didn't think about that, and that's why it probably is off. Because I did hear it 1 or 2 weeks ago. I was tuning around, I was seeing the Morse code. I even received the digital mode bulletin. So buffering must be better now, because I see that the count has stabilized. We're at 95 here. So I guess things are probably better than they were. Okay, station WOHP 1390 station is still in the air with a call WBLL. Interesting. Matt is receiving Radio Kuwait Arabic 17550. Let's check that out. Let me just check if I hear the 15540 DRM. 15540, there's nothing there. Anybody copying 15540? Supposed to be on the air in DRM. So you're getting 17550, right? Just 17550. Am I getting anything here? Nothing much here. Nothing here, really. 17550. Simply, but coming to think of it, since it uses BL5C battery for power, I bet they lower the volume output to try to stop it from killing the battery too fast. Yeah, maybe, but you know what? A lot of portable receivers are actually plagued with that problem, and think it's more of a. I personally think it's more of a defect in the design. And you know what? These radios often they're thinking, well, people are going to use them indoors, and what happens is that they actually don't see that people are going to use them outdoors where it's more noisy. When I went to Perry Island, the XH Data and the Radio R108, I had both of them with me. There they were okay for the simple reason that it's a quiet environment on the island there. But if I'm in a park, if I go to the park near here, for example, I'm just checking if it's raining because Paul the cat is outside. If I go to the park, it's noisier here in the park because there's car around the park, there's traffic. There I have more difficulty, and I probably would be getting more, bringing a pair of earphones or earbuds to compensate. Mike DX, nice to have you on board, staying here tonight, staying up for Scandinavian Weekend Radio at 21 UT tonight. So if anybody copies that at 2100 UT, what are the frequencies, Mike DX? Oh, you shared them. 6170 and 11690. Oh, we're going to try it just for the fun of it. I know it's very low powered. Robert Babcock, nice to have you here, W0RAB. Nice to have you here, Rob. In Connecticut. Rufus Newt, no AC here, 32 Celsius here, Humidex 41. Whoa, looks like here pretty much. Girolamo Savonarola, nice to have you on board from Finland. Pretty cool. Richard Cook, nice to have you here, listening to Voice of Korea 11635. Bobby Burgess, nice to have you on board, WA5107 SWL in Louisiana, USA. Do induction ranges cause RFI? That is a good question. I mean, the problem with the, I got a regular oven and stove. So when I get the clicks of, for example, when you turn on the, put at a certain level, and of course it draws heat, but it switches on and off to keep the temperature at a certain level on mine. So when it actually switches on and off, I of course hear the clicks on the range. So I did get these spikes of interference. Do induction ranges cause RFI? That's a good question. I don't know. Anybody have experience with that? Does your oven, your induction range, cause RFI problems? That's a question. That's an interesting question. John Pickney, is that a YouTube or Videotron? If it was Videotron, I would see it because I have two visuals here of my stream. One comes from Wirecast, and one comes from YouTube itself. So Wirecast, if it couldn't connect well, would tell me that the stream's not right. And I'm full 5 bars green. If Videotron had problems, I would see the YouTube bar telling me that the stream has issues. So the fact that both YouTube and Wirecast tell me everything's green tends me to believe that it's more of a YouTube problem at the other end when it's actually sending out. So I would believe, because of that way of seeing things. D1DJ Case says yesterday evening was outside with the Texan R9012 and the AN7 antenna connector. We've got some nice receptions from all over the bands. Cool. W5BL, nice to have you on board. And this new call, previously W5KJL. Nice to have you here from Central Texas, my friend. Randy, Riverside, California, nice to have you on board. KN6BZJ. Rekre, nice to have you here from Turkey, my friend. Almi Sam wants to try FT8 tomorrow. Cool. John Pickney says, noticed on that VE3JW has moved from Museum of Science and Technology to the Aerospace Museum in Ottawa. Huh. Interesting. René Chabanier says, I'll let you know next week what I think of the Alenco DX R8A. I still have to test it. Yeah, it'd be interesting to let us know. You know, most reports I see are good, so I think it should be pretty interesting. Levy Nathan, nice to have you on board, my friend. K4Z1008 SWL XE3PLF. Shalom, my friend from Israel. Nice to have you here. Vancouver Island DXer, nice to have you on board, my friend. For the past few days, been running my R75 to search for active 6 meter AM band frequencies and activity. So far, I have only captured one signal, and was a US repeater at 4,000 feet elevation. I've been checking out sporadic E-skip this weekend, 6 meters. Not a lot of stuff happening. The 2 weeks prior to this week were amazing, but this week, honestly, it's pretty quiet. So, kind of interesting to see this. Simplio says, I did frequency display accuracy test on R108, centered on 10,000 kilohertz, tuned to the left 3 and 3 kilohertz to the right. Was well balanced and the radio alignment is accurate. Vancouver Island DXer. How often have you heard ships on the marine HF frequencies? Lately, not much. When I started DXing back in the days, the 80s and part of the 90s, I had a lot of that activity. I had a lot of of boats, and I would hear the ship-to-shore phone calls, which were kind of interesting. But unfortunately, today there's not a lot of stuff. There are some stuff. I'm actually slowly building up a database of all the stuff that can be heard still. Because one of the things I will talk in the utility column in the messenger is going to be eventually about marine communications from ships. Here I'm lucky because on the VHF range, I am lucky to live near a big port. So there's a lot of communications in the marine VHF frequencies though. A lot of stuff happening. Bill Fagan, nice to have you here. Bonjour, nice to have you on board. A little buffering earlier, temperature 22. Thanks for doing the show. Nice to have you here, Bill, in the UK. G7 IUI. Really cool. Keith Logan, nice to have you here, says, was picking up 15 stations at 10:30 in the morning. Cool. What am I listening on the SDR right now? Well, I just tuned 17550, but before it was on 3330, the CHU time signal. I'm just going to check out something, guys, for 2 seconds. Sorry, because I want to make sure that Paul the cat is okay. Paul the cat is sleeping like a baby on the balcony and just seems to be very happy where he is. So I guess and leave him alone. What else do we have? Joseph Ivankovich Jr. Nice to have you here. KE8IDM. And says, my first HF radio contact with an IC 7300 was during the Canada Day contest. Pretty exciting, I must say, from a long-time shortwave listener. Cool, that is cool. Congratulations, my friend. Mad Radio DXer, nice to have you on board. Pretty cool. Page Master, nice to have you here. From Moore, Oklahoma, KI5CWF. Did buy the radio TS480HX from a local operator, and I made my first HF contact on 40 meters. on June 22nd, Field Day. Yeah. Cool. Cool. What do we have? Let's go down, let's go down. Try not to miss out on anybody. What else do we have? What else do we have? Bob T, nice to have you here from Northeast Ohio. 90 degrees and humid with a dew point of 76 degrees inside, listening to radio. And a bit better right now. Yeah. You know, with that hot temperature, it's like, part of me wanted to go to Perry Island, but the problem is, I'm getting lazy because of air conditioning. So because of the air conditioning, now when it's like really hot outside, I just feel like staying inside. So I do my listening inside. What else do we have? Yeah, there should be, by the way, let's check that out. Radio Romania 13650. Let's check it out, 13650. Oh, it's very weak. And 11850. 11850 is better here.
20% of the population, whereas 60% are against it. Sworn in last month, my family on Tuesday.
So Radio Romania, English, 11850, 13650.
Vance was bluffed who talked to NATO and EU officials. NATO has been telling Russia to observe the intermediate range nuclear.
It's that frequency, those two frequencies have not been coming in very well lately on my radios. Let's check it out here on the sloper. We're going to go down, so let's go down band. Oops. 13. And AM mode. Slightly there on 13650 on the Yesu. This is on the sloper in the backyard. And oops.
Alert 7 in the WTA classification.
Sloper is getting 11850 pretty good.
40th in the WTA ranking. 6361 in the third round of
So 11850 and 13650 for Radio Romania English. Simon Templar, nice to have you on board, my friend, from Portland, Oregon. Nice to have you here. Ron Deming, nice to have you on board from the Oregon coast. Yeah, nice to have you here. John Pickney, I've seen many household appliances over the past 50 years that should require a a secret from the FCC. Yeah, a lot of appliances are they're just sent out there. I don't know. Yeah, it looks better because Magellan, because when I see here that the count is going up and it's not wobbly, usually a stream is better. So probably a little something earlier. Simplio, my little R108 was hearing NHK Japan via some relay in Italy this morning. Yeah, that's cool. Some Templar heard very, very faint parrot last night, 9:30 Pacific. So that's what, midnight 30 Montreal, 4:30 UT on 6925. I did see something about a pirate or two that were on around 0400 last night, including, I think it was XFM on a lower frequency of 62 something. But I wanted to turn on everything, and then I remembered that the new season of Stranger Things was on Netflix. So that new season of Stranger Things kind of lured me away from the radios last night. Brian Penny says, I have a Whirlpool induction range and have never experienced RFI from the cooktop. So it's interesting, I don't know. Fluorescent ceiling light in my parents' kitchen would wipe out AM broadcast band for blocks around. a lot of these fluorescent lights, a lot of lighting systems, unfortunately, because they use fluorescent lights. Of course, they use ballasts that are very noisy sometimes. A lot of lighting systems use these little switching power supplies to stay small. Are horrible also. Clause Zero, nice to have you on board. And listening to Van Halen on 107.7. D1DJK, BBC on 12095. My drink today is Belgian Moon white beer. It's a Belgian ale, 5.4%. It's a wheat beer, and that's pretty much what I'm drinking today. But cheers, everybody. Ray Kelly, nice to have you on board from Nova Scotia. Nick Mayakovsky, nice to have you on board, my friend. Interesting. Terry Cook says forums on EHAM and others indicate little or no RF interference from induction ranges. That would be the worst, you know. You buy a new fridge, a new range, and all of that starts making tons of noise in your home. That would be kind of really bad. Oh, man. What else do we have? Okay, my screen went dark. This is interesting. It happened last time. With Chrome. That's interesting. I've lost my Chrome browser as frozen. Interesting. It did the same with was last time or the time before. This is so weird. So I'll be back in the chat room in a few seconds once Chrome closes. So for the rest, I hope everything is still okay. The stream looks nice and okay on my. This is so weird. I got a freeze up from Google Chrome. Second time it does that on this PC in 2 weeks. So let's go back. So yeah, it'd be bad if all the appliances we purchased would actually have those problems. It'd be really, really, really bad. So let me just go back here, waiting for Chrome to come back to normal. Waiting for Chrome to come back to life. I'll change browser next time. I'll try the new Edge Chromium browser next time. Wow, this is so weird what's happening here. It's as if my Chrome browser is in another mode. Page unresponsive. Yeah, restore the pages. So yeah, we're back. And here it goes. Back to normal. Back to normal. I'm going to stop this. And I'm going to go back here. I don't know what's happening with the latest version of Google Chrome, but it seems to have some issues. Because the rest of the PC is alright. Kind of weird. Okay, where was I? Oh, I lost the chat room before. So if I didn't say hi to somebody, let me know. Okay, what else? Bro Weaver, nice to have you on board, my friend. What are your thoughts on 2 meters being taken away from hams and making hams secondary users? I heard there was a conference and only one objection, so it is moving forward. Yeah, first of all, you gotta think about something. Is that it's something that's happening for something that will be happening in the future. So it's far away. It's still like 2023 or something before it would be in effect or something. It's kind of, and it comes from Europe. So is that, because that's the other thing I don't understand, is that regulation from Europe that wants to take away a chunk of the 2-meter handband going to be effective in Europe only, or is it going to be effective in Europe, North America, everywhere around the world? That's kind of interesting. Plus, I don't understand it because 2 meters is kind of a pretty used band. I mean, it is, even though it's not as popular as it used to be, it's still very popular. Plus the fact that, you know what, I don't know who decided this or wants to do this, and it's the fact that there's a lot of amateur satellites still there, and they're still going to be broadcasting in 2023. Plus all the new satellites coming up that are all designed for those frequency ranges in the 145 megahertz. I don't know, it's kind of nuts. And I don't know. Joe Pink says, "Are you a fisherman? Our 9-year-old granddaughter can't wait till we go up north to Wisconsin in a week where she can fish. Actually kisses the bluegills before tossing them back." Well, that's nice. She loves to fish. It's cool. I went fishing a couple of times in my life, but it's not an activity that I rather go on the lake with a boat or a canoe or something and just stroll around rather than sitting there and waiting for fish to bite, honestly. Brent, nice to have you on board from Brockville, Ontario, Canada. I'll be sorry for being late on the show. FFFSDDS, nice to have you here from Japan, my friend. Yarakit, nice to have you here. Hooked up my Sangean 909X to a long wire for the first time a couple of weeks ago. Amazingly sensitive. All I'm missing out is sync. Yeah, the 909X and the 909, the original 909, on a long wire are amazingly good radios, honestly. So yeah, that's what John Pinkney says. It's 2-meter takeaway is for ITU region 2. So it's Europe and Africa. It would not be for North America. But still, there needs to be, I think it needs to be saved everywhere, honestly. What else do we have? Mikhail Mash says, "Voice of Nigeria still coming in on 11770. Appears to be in French. Let's try it out. 11770. Oh man, I see a nice signal here. Look at that. I'm trying to I'm not getting a strong enough signal to make sure that it's French or not. It can look like French, but I'm not sure. It sounds like it, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure, because a lot of African languages or dialects actually do have they kind of sound like French, but they're not French. So I'm not sure. Matt says, "Getting Radio Romania International Weekly on 13650 on his IC 7100 with 20-meter dipole. Well, only the carrier on the RSP2 Pro on the W6LVP loop. Interesting. I am noticing something about the W6LVP loop. And the 25-meter band, it doesn't seem to be super sensitive. Compared to my sloper, at least. David Arden says, weather is great. The weather in Greater Atlanta, is so hot and humid. I do not want to go out either. Discovering the great indoors." It's getting complicated, you know. There's going to be great indoors when it's too hot and great indoors when it's too cold, which means you'll be indoors all the time. Vancouver Island DX says, last night I copied an Australian ham on 30 meter CW. It was my best DX so far on that underused band. Brian V7AUL. Because the 30 meter band is probably underused for a very simple reason. It doesn't have voice. So anybody that doesn't like voice, that doesn't like CW, stuff like that, it kind of gets a little out of, of a lot of people's reach. But when I look at DX Fun Cluster and stuff like that, websites like that, there's often a lot of very nice DX. It's like the work band, the 17 meter work band, 18068 to 18168. When it's open, honestly, it's been one of my favorite bands for DXing stations, because often there's a lot of nice countries showing up on that band. Sid Vic, nice to have you here, my friend. Derek Hogan, are there Canadian pirates active? We can't know for sure, because pirates tend to be very secretive as to where they are. But that said, I know one active in the southern province of Quebec, and I'm pretty sure there's one in the province of Ontario also. So yeah, there are some, but it's kind of hard to know, where they are broadcasting from. But I'm pretty sure that they're not just in the U.S. Many times we've listened to, by the way, and thought of having, there was one, I remember when, because today they are all giving emails and stuff, but I remember once there was these pirates that were actually giving out, some mailboxes or some post office box to write letters before email started being popular. And there were some post office boxes that were Canadian. But also we were thinking, okay, maybe they're using a PO box that's in Canada, close to the border, and they just crossed the border, especially before 9/11. Going into Canada and going into the US was easy. You didn't even need a passport or anything. You just went there, and you could decide back in the 90s or the 80s, you could just decide, hey, I'm going to the US today, and you need nothing. You just go. Those were the good times. So I would guess that back then, some of them could have, I suppose, used a PO box in Canada so not to get caught in the US. But I do think there are some Canadian pirates, yes, absolutely. But on the shortwave bands, I've never in my life ever heard a pirate in Montreal, ever, on the FM and AM band, ever. Though I was technically a pirate when I was a teen, but with so low power that nobody ever heard me anywhere. Redelva 65, nice to have you on board. I have to cut it short, heading for the expedition. Oh yeah, you're gonna have a lot of fun. So there's gonna be some video on his channel to follow. So check his YouTube channel. I think it's gonna be nice to see this. So take care, Redelva 65. Nice to have you here, and have fun on the D expedition. John Pickney says my oldest call sign in Washington, WMAL, is now WSBN, dumping liberal political talk for ESPN Sports. John McClure, nice to have you on board. Stephen Wood opened his first Sam Adams Summer Ale. Very refreshing. Sounds good. Sounds really good. So, going down, we're going to try to catch up with the chat now a little bit. If I missed your name and never said hey, please let me know. So John McClure, nice to have you here. Nawaf Al Musa, nice to have you on board. Where are you, Nawaf? Let us know where you are from. Bro Weaver, hey Joel, what are your thoughts on 2 meter? Yeah, so I was just talking about this. It's really region 2, but I think it's one of the biggest problems, I think, because when I see that people saying there's just one objection, one of the things that I'm scared of for the future of amateur radio operating and for the future of radio is that I have the impression, like I get all the time people saying, well, thanks for what you do because you're kind of helping keeping the hobby alive by doing these shows and doing stuff like that and participating everywhere and being on the International Radio Report. I have the impression that there are less people and the younger generation that are ready to come forward to help in the hobby and defend what we have. I mean, one of the things not to forget, guys, is that anybody that has an amateur radio license, you guys have one major responsibility, and it's to show that, first of all, ham radio is still important. It's still something that needs to stay alive. And you guys need to do something when something like that happens, because you need to defend the bands you have. Look at the United States. The what was it? What's the 1.25 meter band, which is 220 megahertz. I mean, you guys lost a chunk of 220, and one of the major problems with 220, which was always and still is, there's very little activity on 220. But one of the things also, one of the reasons is a lot of radios don't have it in their setup. A lot of VHF, UHF transceivers, they only have 2 meters, 70 centimeters. So it of course lowers naturally. Honestly, and that's something you gotta think. You gotta defend. So you gotta defend your bands. You gotta keep that alive. So we thanks Simon Templar. We kind of mixed up the regions here. So in AM radio, region 1 is Europe, Africa, the Middle East, and Northern Asia. Region 2 is Americas, and region 3 is Asia Pacific. So actually it's region 1 that's affected by the latest of the 2 meter ham band problem. Also, I'm looking at something that was published to the 2nd of July. There's a text. So, okay, interesting. So, one of the things also that seems to be here, and they're actually asking, is that 50 to 52 megahertz in the 6 meter band in region 1 be allocated to amateur service on a secondary basis also. That's kind of interesting. So lots happening actually here. I mean, isn't there enough frequencies everywhere for things? So region 1 is Europe, and region 1 is the only affected region. It doesn't seem like 2 meter would be affected here in North America. So well, you know what, John Pickney, man. Because John Pickney says 2 meter FM in Europe is garbage, makes US CB sounds mature. We get this all the time about 2 meter activity and 2 meter band. I listen to 2 meter repeaters from time to time. I gotta say it's, I'll say it more in, I'm not really interested in what's happening there. So, but still, 2 meter band is not, or doesn't sound like CB. But still, I don't know. We got to be careful with, having a, because we all have a different way of thinking of the hobby. Okay, some people in the amateur hobby want to chit chat about, whatever, and they do that on 2 meters. They also do that on HF sometimes, but as long as you follow the rules, and understand a little bit about ham radio, it's important to, obviously I've never listened to 2 meters in Europe. I'd like to be curious to see, I don't know if there's some stream somewhere where I can listen to some 2 meter repeater somewhere in Europe, but the hobby has to have, there has to have a mix of everything on amateur radio. I mean, people that are like you guys here and like me, we take our hobby kind of seriously, and an amateur radio operator, and when I get my license, for me being a ham is important and is a serious business. But we got to understand that we got to accept that everything is welcome on the amateur bands as long as rules are followed. And like we always say, if you don't like what you hear, you got that, tuning knob, and you can change the frequency and move away. You don't have to participate. And we got to be careful with the way that we think about that, because if we start cutting out frequencies or cutting out rights because of a way of using the hobby that we personally don't like, but they're still following rules, what's going to happen is that there's going to be less amateur radio operators, and the less amateur radio operators are going to be, the less we'll be able to keep on and hold on to what we have. So we got to accept that everything's welcome as long as we follow the rules. PLF radio, yeah, I saw that. The next solar cycle might be kind of lower, or there's a mixed bag. There's 2-3 different expert reports. I did read that article also. We've got to be careful with, of course, having nice solar cycles is cool. But remember one thing, the last solar cycle we had was a small one, but it still gave us great propagation. I mean, when it reached its peak, even though the peak was not big, it's still a peak, and it's still better than now being at the bottom. So let's, instead of like looking at the consequence of what we don't have, or we're not just there yet, let's just see what's going to happen, and just live with our hobby. I mean, we just got to live with what we have, and we talked about it last week. We just got to live with what we have. We can't, if solar activity is low, solar activity is low. You can't invent solar activity, and you can't say, hey, I want more solar activity. There we go. We got to live with the propagation and the solar activity we've got. So let's just, instead of using that, and maybe, because it's easy to just say, oh, well, you know what, I think I'm going to have it with the hobby because the next solar cycle is going to be bad, and I'm not receiving a lot of stuff, and you know what, maybe I should do something else in life as a hobby. I'm not. I don't like that way of thinking. We got to be careful not to be negative, and we just got to do the best we can with what we have. And that said, I mean, I'm having some great stuff regularly that I can listen to, some great DX of all sorts of signals, and having a lot of fun. And we're at solar minimum. I mean, let's live with what we have. You know what? I'm scared of something much more problematic than solar activity. What scares me is the noise levels we've got around us, much more than solar activity. Because honestly, go to a quiet place where there's no noise, you'll see there's a hell of a lot of stations to listen to. So that is more of a problem. Yeah, okay. Yeah, some of these stations might be stronger with more solar activity. But still, the noise level is more of a problem than solar activity. And for me, where will that noise end? You know, I mean, I was thinking the other day about something, and it's, let's say that I've got, 10 years ago I had S3 noise level. I should have kept a log of, 30 frequencies on shortwave throughout the spectrum, and note their noise level every year for 20, 30 years. And I'm pretty sure if you do that, we would see that there's a slow rise of our noise floor all the time. It's all the time rising. And the more, and that's what I'm scared is solar activity is not going to destroy the hobby. What's going to destroy our hobby is that if the noise doesn't stop rising, we just won't have a hobby of radio listening. And that's much more of a problem for me. Ah, man. Richard Cook's got 11770 on shorter language. Yeah, it did sound like that. Stephen Wood says 11770 is an African dialect. That's what I kind of heard. Yeah, 60 meters. Well, it's kind of like I said. As long as we keep the old beta rules. Bro Weaver says, give me a signal report on WBCQ. I have heard them running 500 kilowatt transmitter. I'm wondering if your reception has improved. Can you pick it up on both the loop and the sloper? Are they on right now? Let me just check that out. 9330 is a very weak, barely S6 over here right now. It's there. Oh, moving up, S8, S9. Let's go down to sloper. Sloper mode. Sloper. Wow. This is the sloper. 9330. This is the loop. So the loop is actually better in getting the station. But I am not that far from Monticello, Maine. So WBCQ, even if they're using 500 kilowatts, a lot of the signal skips over me. So, Okay, let's try to catch up here to say hi to everybody. I've been steadily going behind. I'm actually more behind now than I was before. Okay, what else? Let's... Page Master, you were intercepting a strange signal labeled Kodar. I remember reading a recent article in the Spectrum Monitor, November 2016. It does describe what it is. Yeah, Kodar, which is a very nice, basically ocean wave radars. John McClure, do I have enough mods for now? Hey, here you go, John. You've been there for a while. John McClure, new moderator. How about it? You happy? Very nice to have you here. Archie Versace, nice to have you here. You need to be active on the bands to defend them. Yeah, that's true. Frank C, Nice to have you here. What's the difference between a scanner and shortwave radio? Well, they're not the same frequency ranges. Shortwave radio is listening to the bands up to 30 megahertz that have propagation through the ionosphere. So you'll listen to stations from the other side of the world. Scanner will receive VHF, UHF, line of sight communications. Very, very different. John Pickney says, a well-known package delivery service bought 220 to 222. Fair and square. Yeah. Legion, nice to have you here from Germany, my friend. You got the World Radio TV Handbook 2018 and quite stunned. It's a nice book. It's a really nice book. I got to say one thing, and I'm agreeing with Bro Weaver here. You know what? The first time ever that I heard that the governments were selling radio spectrum, so that's what happened with the cellular bands, and seeing that these companies are buying spectrum, I thought that it was crazy. The radio spectrum isn't owned by anybody. It exists, and of course it's a way for them to make money, but come on, there should not, and even here in Canada they do it, they sell the radio spectrum for the Canadian government. There should not be, and it should not exist, that radio spectrum is something that can be sold to somebody, because now it gets dangerous, because somebody can cough up, hey, I got $10 billion, I want to have the 2-meter handband. And you know what? For $10 billion, no amateur radio operator is going to have any voice. Because what's going to happen? The government's going to say, oh, I'll take your cash, and here's the 2-meter handband, and that's it. And that is scary, because I'm sorry, you cannot buy radio spectrum. I'm sorry, this is a really wrong way of doing things, honestly. What else do we have? Going down slowly. Andy Coley, nice to have you here. Joe Sombra Newhouse, nice to have you on board from Sao Paulo, Brazil. And he says it's very cold. Well, it's hot here. We should send you some of that heat. David in Barcelona, nice to have you on board. My first 500 QSL cards are on their way to be printed. Yeah, that's nice. Share with us what it looks like. We want to see it. We want to see it. Fastload, nice to have you here, my friend from Montreal, Quebec, Canada. John Pickney says, when the 1.25 meter band was sold, the ARL repeater directory was used to justify it. You know what? It just sounds bad. You can't sell spectrum. I'm sorry. I do not agree with selling spectrum. That is bull from the government. Somebody somewhere said, hey, we can rack in a lot of cash if we sell radio spectrum. And it shouldn't be like that. It shouldn't be like that. Terry Cook says the proposal says that the reason that they would like to take 2 meters was because it is currently a worldwide allocation for amateur radio. Yeah. Yeah, that's what I'm scared of, because it isn't clear. Because so it comes from, the request comes from France, and France wants to reallocate 144 to 146 megahertz. The problem is, this goes through ITU, which is the International Telecommunications Union. I'm afraid that that request could be expanded in all regions, meaning even in North America we would lose that access to the spectrum, which is crazy. And it shows one thing, is that there's no respect for the amateur radio side of the community and the radio spectrum. It's interesting because when we think about it, radio, amateur radio operating doesn't give any money anywhere, pretty much. I mean, you pay for your license, but come on, just the sheer cost of having to maintain a registry of all of that and whatever, the amount of money sent pretty much just covers whatever it costs, but they're not making money over it. And what's sad is that there's probably some kind of thinking, and I wouldn't be surprised that one of the ways of thinking is, well, first, if these guys can't maintain activity on these frequencies, why should they have the frequencies? And let's face it, it is a valid point of view. Say that tomorrow morning and for the next years, nobody's on 2 meters. Then why should amateur radio operators have 2 meters? Because they're not using it. Okay? Now, it is used, but it's not used like it was 30 years ago. I hear less stuff on 2 meters today, at least here, than I did 20 or 30 years ago. The other thing is, it doesn't ranking any money, and since we decided that radio spectrum can be purchased for billions of dollars, why not purchase 2 meters? We're in kind of a loophole that's kind of complicated here. And money talks. So, once again, amateur radio operators, I did my share. I'm not even a ham radio operator. I could have just kept it quiet. I did do a video, and I posted the link of the petition so that as many people as possible can sign the petition. I signed it, and I'm not even a ham radio operator. So you guys need to do your share also. You want to keep what you have, you got to do your share, you got to work for it. And one of the things that you got to be careful here, amateur radio operators are kind of second category in all the spectrum. There's nobody out there that thinks you guys are the important link in radio communications until something bad happens. When there's a disaster and then all the amateur radio operators start doing some stuff to help out. Oh, okay, we start seeing that ham radio operators are important. But the problem is, they're alive and well when something happens, but they're invisible when nothing happens. And it's crazy. And the newer generation, because the other thing you got to think, okay, a lot of us are older folks. We got to say it. I mean, the average age of the ham radio operator is not 18 years old, I can tell you that. Neither is the one of the shortwave radio listener. But regulations, okay, are being done by people that are younger than we are. And look around you. I don't know if a lot of young guys, millennials or even Y generation, that know that amateur radio exists. Not counting the fact that a lot of it is always like, oh, you do CB. I remember when I got here and they would see my Kenwood or my ICOM or my Yisu or this, and it's like, oh, you do CB. I don't do CB. I'm not doing CB. I'm listening to shortwave, but I won't talk about it because you're bored with it anyways. It's a very complex issue, and you got to defend what you have. That means you got to use the bands, you got to do stuff. It's got to be active. If one day, if in 20 years from now, 2 meters, 70 centimeters, all of that is not used, and somebody's going to come up to the government and say, hey, I'm going to cost $20 billion, and hey, can I get the 440 to 450 megahertz spectrum? I'm going to do something with that. What do you think? The government's going to say, hey, we're getting $20 billion. Woohoo, let's sell that 10 megahertz spectrum. Kimberly, K6YYL, nice to have you here. Firefly, G8 SBS, nice to have you on board. Going very well here. What else do we have? John Pickney says, I was involved indirectly with one of the new occupants in 222 megahertz, a short-lived company called TV Answer tried doing interactive TV with it. Huh, interesting. Stephen Wood says, doesn't appear that there's a signal from Guinea right now. 9635. Let me just, I lost my, okay, here we go. John Pickney, surprised that in the US, the NEB hasn't taken on noise with FCC on behalf of AM broadcasters. The biggest problem, the National Association of Broadcasters, the biggest problem with that, I think, is the inability to do anything about it. You know what, John? It's complicated, because one of the biggest problems we have right now is that a lot of that noise comes from Chinese stuff that have no, there's no FCC sticker on it saying this meets the minimum requirement of whatever. That said, we also participate in this, and you're happy to get that Android box from China for $35 that plugs to your TV and does amazing things. But that Android box at $35 has and generates so much noise, it's just crazy. And if you would have an FCC stamp on it that says it doesn't emit noise, well, instead of $35, it'd be $135. So two things are happening. Is the noise from some devices is bad, and it's because it comes from, weird sources inside China and bad switching power supplies. But we participate in it. We are actually cheap in our electronics today. I bought an XH data, or I would buy an XH data for $70. In 1980s, a radio of that quality of reception, it cost $500, $600. It's crazy. Dejan, I'm using the SDR Play RSP1A SDR. David says, I have my doubts regarding the feasibility of giving 2 meter band another purpose for our new users. There's a lot of QRM sources that can be returned, such as dozens of sats up there. Yeah, absolutely. And we got to be careful, because it's a proposal, but it doesn't mean it's going to happen and it's going to do something. But it tells us one thing: we need to stay aware of the amateur radio bands and make sure that everything is always okay. I'm happy, John McClure. Eddie Essex, nice to have you on board. 90 degrees feels like over 100 in Cernia. Pretty much here. I did on Canada Day. I listened to. I listened a lot to the Canada Day contest on the ham bands. I heard a lot of provinces. I heard many provinces. I was hunting down a little bit of the RSC stations, the Radio Amateurs of Canada stations. There's also the 13 Colony contest that I actually have heard a lot of, and that goes on until, I believe it goes on until Sunday. Wasn't up to the July 7th? So there's still that in the US going on, the 13 Colony contest stuff. For sure. What else do we have? Can anybody check 9690? 9690, and we've got Spain with a very good signal. Radio Exterior de España is really good on 9690. David Snyder says WBCQ booming in Staten Island, New York. So let's go down. Bob T says, well, the proposed G5 network increase the noise level for radio. The network itself, no, because they're very high frequencies. It's just crazy high frequencies. What we need to be careful is the devices the devices that will run that. These are the ones that are creating noise, not the network itself. Stephen Wood, 9690, Spain with your signal. Richard Cook, very strong in Spanish. Simon Templar, the beer today is the Belgian Moon, which is a white wheat beer. So, pretty nice. Yeah, Rufus, buy the light spectrum, $100 billion. So you need to use it to watch. We'll have these goggles, and we'll see more or less the colors depending on the on how much we pay for it. Eddie Gomez, nice to have you here from the Netherlands. And in the city of Eindhoven, 106 kilometers, 66 miles south of Amsterdam. Nice to have you here. You know what, Archie Versace, I would be happy to send some of that eat to Scotland, no problem. Coffee, Simon Templar, that's perfect. Bullfrog, KD2CXU, nice to have you here from Watertown, New York. Arthur's Alley Crafter's Kitchen, nice to have you on board from Massachusetts. Pretty cool. Mike DX says that's exactly what they do here in the UK, auctions billions. Yeah, every government has gone into that. Let's sell radio spectrum. John Pickney says, Jill, look at what happened to the TV broadcasting in the US. I think the next repack will take TV back to VHF only. All those cell phones need spectrum for data, specifically HD video. We got to be careful because one of the things that's happening here is that, of course, you know, these devices, we're doing a lot of stuff with this. And remember, the more we do, the more video and HD, and you know, when you want to see 4K in here, don't forget one thing. Oh, yes, there's compression, but there's a limit to compression in digital signals. That means that these things, when you watch a video, requires, especially if you look at 4K or whatever, the faster you want this to go, the bigger the chunk of frequencies it takes up. Simplio says, for some reason 2 meter is dead here, and okay, see, just 2 nights a week is a net. You know, we don't have a lot of stuff here either, honestly. Gerard Dallenort, nice to have you here. Voice of America 6195, nice to have you here from the Netherlands. Pretty cool. John Pickney says 2 meter is inactive in the DC area, likely due to cell phones. Yeah, it's not the same thing. I mean, come on. Oh man. Matt says the thing that surprises me about 2 meter thing is that they're talking about the part that satellite communications occur. Et voila. And you know what? All these satellites are still going to be there and still transmit. What? Are going to ask all the clubs and all the guys that meet these satellites to shut them off or something? I mean, they're still going to be there. I think that's a idiotic proposal, honestly. And don't tell me there's other parts of the spectrum you can't grab somewhere. Come on. Brent says, any recommendation for new laptop for SDR that has low RFI power supply? Well, I can tell you from experience that every single Toshiba laptop I purchased all had very low RFI, almost inexistent. My Toshiba I'm using for streaming right now, and I've got 3 older Toshibas here. The computer and the power supplies are extremely quiet. David says his QSL unveiling is coming soon. This is going to be cool. This is going to be cool. Oh man. Matt says, when I go to ham radio club meeting, there are more gray heads than not. I'm pushing 50 myself. You know, 50 also, you know. Blah blah UK. Bought a radio and wondered if you would be kind enough to tell me if it's any good with its frequency ranges. And what is the radio that you purchased? What's the radio you purchased? What do we have? Take care, Mickey. Have a great day expedition. John Pickney says, Virginia senator from my community was impressed to see that my most recent current car didn't have extra antennas. I told her I expect Virginia senators to provide disaster communications. Matt says, that said, I know of hams who are younger who grew up with the internet. They're around. Oh, absolutely. I mean, there are some young hams and I mean, just look here. I have, kind of converted some of the younger generation to shortwave radio and maybe amateur radio eventually with what I do here. The biggest problem with all the new frequency ranges, what's crazy, is that the higher frequencies are used, the less effective they are, and the easier they are blocked by objects. So if we go to G5, if we go to other more advanced, bands and technologies, I mean, will you be putting up 10 times more towers everywhere to cover because that 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 gigahertz frequency? I mean, an example of that is that put yourself on 10 gigahertz and the tower's 200 meters from you and there's a tree behind you and the tower. That tree will block a big chunk of the power. The higher the frequencies, the easier it is blocked by everything around it. So at some point you're like, yeah, okay, I get the grasp of the VHF, the lower range is maybe being maxed out by too many communication systems. But I don't know. It's crazy what's happening. The U1DJK says that's our clubs for. That's what our club's for. They have equipment for those who have not a transceiver, port antenna, or nothing like what we call club station, where every member of the club can use the bands. Yeah, that's nice that they exist actually. Click the like button, says John Pickney. Come on, guys. But there are some young generation guys that do radio. Absolutely, we gotta. I think ham radio operating needs to be. It's always been a hobby and a thing that's a little out of the ordinary. I mean, when I was, in the 80s, shortwave listening was something that was kind of weird. And apart from my best friend that I was in school with that got a radio because I had one, I had nobody else ever talk to me about, oh, I listen to shortwave. So put that, and I was, 14 years old, 13, 14, 15 years old. Put that in perspective. I'll do the same thing today. If I was one out of, I don't know how many people that listen, it might be much worse today. And we got, that's another thing. We are part of, once again, I do my part. I'm on a platform that is young generation, so YouTube. You guys, the average age of YouTube viewers is something like 20 years old. It's a platform that is used mainly by much younger people. and I'm here. And I know some people that were young that just came across, look at that live stream with that guy talking about what the hell is it? But it worked in some cases. There are some people here that are 18 or 19 or 20 and came across my channel and said, you know what, I bought a radio. And I started trying it out because it looks fascinating. Of course, we can't transform everybody in an amateur radio operator or a shortwave listener but once again, amateur radio operators have a certain responsibility to show that hobby and bring that hobby alive to the younger generation and say, you know what, look, this is something we do that is still helpful, but you got to use a way to explain it and talk about it that will push these young girls and these young guys into kind of maybe finding it interesting. Tristan Patty, nice to have you here. Says shortwave listening here on the west coast of Newfoundland, and nice summer weather to boot. Cool. Nice to have you on board from Newfoundland, my friend. The only JK, when you only have a bunch of retired old farts in your club, you lose fun to be active because you get no response or power to do things. You know, I've been to many radio meetings, and I will just say one thing, and I mean, I'm very active and I do this and I'm having fun. You guys are fun, but almost every radio meeting I've been to, man, they are so boring that you just don't want to be there. Shady Pyro 90, nice to have you on board. You know, it gets to a point where you're like, oh man. Kimberly, nice to have you on board from California. Nice to have you here. What else do we have? Kimberly says, dusted the cobwebs off her 2-meter 440 handheld and walked around the city I live in and made a few contacts. I like the Catalina Island repeater. I can hit that in a lot of places here. Cool. Cool. 9DX 11720 hearing pop music. Let's check it out. Do I hear anything on 11720, which is supposed to be Scandinavian weekend radio from Finland? I don't even have a peep of a signal here. And let's just see if I get anything here, which I'm pretty sure I'm not. Nope. Nothing. I've never heard that, but they're very, very low power. Very, very low power. So you're using a Kiwi SDR in southwest of the UK. So maybe a European SDR, maybe that Swedish one. There's a Swedish SDR in the first part of the list on SDR.hu. That could be interesting. You know, Simplio says, we gotta be careful with the way that we act, because he's totally right in one thing. I mean, we were young and we were new to the hobby at one time, and we did, and I mean that means we didn't know anything, but we needed help. We needed someone to kind of try and help us out and learn more of the hobby, honestly. And we got to be careful, because we're there for that. We are there to explain our hobby, not be, you know, there are some idiots out there that think they know it all. You know, I mean, you can think of, you know, a Finnish one that kind of, you know, blasted my channel so many times. Well, instead of doing that, why don't you use that energy to help out the community and say, you know what, Instead of treating you like trash and saying you're dumb, explain your hobby in a decent way to people that want just to understand it. These are the people that are actually really bad in our hobby, because some guy will go to a club meeting, meet an idiot like that guy, and come back home and say, you know what, these guys are just old farts, they think they're the best in the world, and I'm just stupid. And that's sad, because there are some that are like that. I hear some from time to time on the bands that, you listen to them and it's like, yeah, maybe you should listen to yourself in the mirror. It would be better than being on a handmaids. You've got to be careful. We're here to help also, Come on. David says, 2 meter quite alive in Barcelona, no polyps. But there's always a signal or another. If it isn't a QSO on the local frequency, 145,550, or another, someone's trying FT8 on 444,300. Cool. Dr. Tin, nice to have you here from the Netherlands. Vancouver Island DXer says, some of the repeaters around here are now digital. I cannot copy them because they use manufacturer-specific protocols, and I am not willing to spend money to tie myself to a particular brand. That is also something we got to be careful with. And one of the biggest, once again, it's a money thing. One of the biggest, okay, let's go back a little bit here and what I got to say. One of the things about digital modes, when you use FLDG and we decode PSK31 and all of that, there's no money behind it. These are pretty much open source of modes that are just sent out there. What is the biggest problem with the digital modes, like Brian says, is yes, some companies decided, hey, let's create my own digital mode, so people buy Kenwood radios. And I'll have my digital mode, so everybody buys Yaesu radios. And I'll have my digital mode because everybody's going to buy ICOM radios. And it begins to get in a battle between the companies, trying to lure you into buy my radio because I do that, and buy that radio because it's that mode. I'm sorry, but you know what? No one should buy any of those digital radios, and everybody should just say, you know what, your digital junk that you're selling, well, I'm not buying a radio from you anymore. And let them know that, okay, there's open standards, and every radio should have all of the open standards, not the shitty standards that they have that are always there making money, and the others don't have, because you got to license that digital mode if you want to have it on that radio. A lot of the SDR stuff doesn't decode certain stuff, certain modes, simply because you got to pay a license to decode that thing. That should not be allowed. And there's that thing in amateur radio operating. You can't use amateur radio operating or anything related to it to make money, technically. Well, that should extend to what they do with those digital modes that are specific for a brand of radio. And I totally agree with you, Brian. Fastload grew up with the internet, actually saw the internet as its beginning, and yeah. Well, we grew up with computers and all, even before the internet, Fastload, honestly. Uniden Burkhat UBC 360. I don't know much about that one, blah blah, but anybody can help. What else do we have? Zachary Antol, nice to have you on board, my friend. Elton Byington, nice to have you here. Says, I'm 75 and have been a ham since 59. Yes, we're getting older, but many of us are still active. K2JWA in Baltimore. Cool. And we gotta stay active. I mean, I come from, the 80s listening to shortwave, and yes, I have my ups and downs, honestly, And honestly, we gotta, keep active. I mean, there have been a few years where I've been pretty much inactive as as the operator, and there are times when I just didn't turn on the radio for years, but I always come back for some reason at some point, Of course, you can regret a lot of stuff, I could regret being not listening enough and missing out on some of the biggest times and moments in shortwave or amateur radio stuff. But you know what? We can't think like that. We gotta, the problem, John McClure, is that the World Radio TV Handbook is $50 because printing books is now very expensive. That's the biggest problem. Printing books is very, very, very expensive. John Pickney, 63, divorced and retired, and have had shortwave listening and ham radio as hobbies since 61. Ooh, Calvin Morgan, nice to have you here. 5G is very easily blocked. Too easily wet leaves are going to be the real problem. So also inversion layers, even the atmosphere. I mean, just the Earth's atmosphere blocks these frequencies too. Firefly says, problem is the internet has put ham radio on the back burner. Yes and no, because it's not the same. I think it's like saying, I always, and it's my opinion. It's like when I hear somebody saying, well, the internet just like, made shortwave obsolete. No, it did not. I never had a replacement on the internet of what I was listening to on shortwave. Ever. Not ever. Oh, all the stations are on shortwave now, on the internet now. No, they're not. The majority of radio stations that I've gone. They just are gone. Those that did stay on the internet for a while noticed that their audience did drop dramatically once they left shortwave, because the stations, and it's one of the biggest problems. The internet, there's that thing you can check out how many people are listening in a week. You have that ability to know how many people are there. Shortwave, you don't. There's no real way to know how many people are actually listening. Look at a great example, the International Radio Report on CKUT, 90.3 FM in Montreal, that I participate. That station, being a university station, does not pay for any, we don't know how many people in Montreal are actually listening to 90.3, ever. The only reason we know some people are listening to the International Radio Report is because some of you send feedback, but honestly, there's not a lot of feedback. So every week we do that show and we're like, is anybody listening out there? And on shortwave, that's the biggest problem. So Radio Romania puts out that signal. Well, is anyone listening? Or are we just spending 200 kilowatts of power for an hour with no one out there? And once again, the only way they know that you're there is by writing an email or a letter and saying, hey, I'm here. So, it's crazy, but we got to let them know we're listening, because a lot of people tend to think that the internet is replacing shortwave, and it's not. It's not the same thing. And I always want to say, because we live in times where things are not too complicated. But I always say, do you know that you might actually have a war or something bad happen And you know what happens? Well, we see this in African countries right now a lot. What happens is that the internet is blocked and your cell phone, text messages are blocked. No way of communicating. Well, you know what? Shortwave's still there, and that still works. Because you can't block it, really. You can jam it, but it's inefficient. And you'll get news from somewhere else. Brian Penny says, trouble is, I don't know if there is all that many radio nerds out there who know that HF real estate is available out there. Yeah. And, once again, the people we are here we are more knowledgeable in many aspects of our hobby. So it's kind of crazy. And there's too much of that going on that, CB, amateur radio and CB are like, always the same thing for a lot of people. Joe Sombronius is 35, started to enjoy shortwave radio and ham radio since just 5 years ago. Before that, radio for me was just FM music. Cool. Kind of cool, Grew without Google. Yeah, I grew without Google. I wanted to learn something. I would go to the library and I have a book that often was 20 years older, but still, it was a book. And I learned about stuff. I remember going to the library, the local library, probably, 10, 12 times a year, looking at the radio section. Do they have any new books about radio? Kind of interesting. John Pickney says, done some air stuff in hurricanes, blizzards, airline crash disaster, Air Florida Flight 90. The effort by government to ban mobile ops has me thinking about not bothering to help next time. Yeah. And it's sad because, here we saw it with the ice storm of '98. Amateur radio was extremely important. Simplio says, yeah, Joe, it's like they use their knowledge like they are some kind of royalty and that they have had to know CW and, are against anyone without needing CW. There's still a lot of that attitude going on. Just the other day, I heard a ham radio operator says, oh, well, yeah, they're the young generation. They're too idiot. They don't want to learn CW. And, my answer to that would be, look, you want your hobby to be popular or not? We got to move on in times. CW, yeah, it's not used anymore. So, there's other stuff. And why put a requirement that blocks so many people? Because let's face it, if you know CW and decode it by ear, and you're proud of it, congratulations. I mean, it's fantastic. And I totally understand that you should be proud of that. Because I barely recognize it just by hearing a little bit. If it repeats 4 or 5 times, I might catch a call or stuff like that. But it can be sent really fast also. It's learning a language, and CW was a big hurdle for a lot of people. Imagine how many people never got their license because CW was the big thing that blocked them from doing it. And I think we got to move on. There are new technologies, there's new stuff, and it's okay to remove the CW requirement. But so many older hams are frustrated. It's like if they're frustrated that, well, we should have had that requirement, no CW in 1975. Hey, things were different. Here there's it's interesting because I was talking, there's a teacher that I know that there's a big controversy about the math exam at high school. that was too tough this year. And she told me, you know what? They say it's too tough. It's nothing compared to the ham exam we were passing in 1985 when we were in high school. That was way more tough. It's simplified compared to the past. And you look at that and you're like, yeah, what are we trying to do? You know? Maybe having a simplified way of doing tests. And you know, as long as the knowledge is still there. You know, I'll say it and say it again. I mean, I listened to 2 meters, and I've listened so many times to some technical talk, and I'm like, wow, I don't even have my ham license, and I know 100 times more than they do on that radio subject. Oh man, Imad Abbas, nice to have you here. John Pickney, knowledge is of zero value unless it's shared. And that's it. Free Saxon, nice to have you here. Tony Turtle, nice to have you on board. Nice to have you here, guys. Always nice to have all of you here. Interesting subject today, actually. Of diverted from my favorite my favorite radio stations, but really kind of really nice. Kind of nice. Yes, it's pretty much the same thing, Free Saxon, when you talk about video codecs. You know, a lot of people have been asking an example, a simple example, why Windows 7 would not play DVDs on its own. And it was simply because Microsoft didn't want to pay the royalties for every copy of Windows to have DVD playing. So they left it like, well, they'll figure out there's, you know, software out there. And often when you would buy a DVD-ROM for your PC, you would actually pay for the licenses for the codecs that came with the DVD-ROM because it had that CD with the software that did play it. You know, it's crazy. Keegan says, my dad W9JEF is 80 and licensed since August 1954, still active. Pretty cool. Brian says, I gave out on club meetings years ago. Now I just meet with small groups in our homes and local coffee shops. It's way more fun this way. We do show and tell about our current projects. Plus, there's a place like this. I mean, look at what we have here. It's kind of a club meeting. I mean, everybody, we have a big chunk of the people that are the same people that what's happening. It's that we are together, and this is kind of a club or a weekly meeting. It's virtual. But look at how a great gang we are. Polite, correct, and happy to be radio guys and girls. It's just a lot of fun, you know? We don't need radio meetups with, you know, old farts that just think they are the best in the world, you know? Brian Penny, like it or not, the internet will be the salvation of our shortwave hobby. Thanks to people like Joel and others yet to be named, we will bring the magic of radio to future generations. Absolutely. You know, I remember the first video I posted, the first ever video I posted on YouTube was a radio video. And I thought, you know what, this is going to be a place where people are going to see what this is all about. I never thought I would come to be like I am now. But it's kind of nice. Kimberly says, I had to tell you the first time I saw your video, radio view only. But you were talking, I thought you were a 40s or so dark-haired with dark mustache man from Spain. Eduardo. I should have called myself Eduardo and you would have believed it all the way. I like that. It's like I always say, when you hear the voice of somebody, of course you have a visual of what that person probably looks like, and believe it or not, 99% of the time when we see that person, you're like, really? That gremlin is the guy with that big voice or whatever, I remember the first time I saw. Oh man, there's so many announcers that I saw the first time. I was like, really, that 5'5" guy is that announcer? Okay, I never thought. It's just crazy. W7I Omru, nice to have you here, my friend. Take care, Mike DX. What else do we have? No personal people meters on shortwave yet. Yeah, unfortunately. F7I says, I feel like the internet has dramatically improved my radio hobbies. So much great information to help. It has, personally, myself too. Au revoir, PLF Radio. Toujours bienvenue. Et puis, vendredi prochain, 20h temps universel, pour la prochaine émission. Bonne semaine. But you know what? I'm so happy with the internet. It's such a nice way to complement, to have so much information about our hobby. I mean, in the 80s, I had nothing. In the 80s, you would hear a pirate radio station. You had to listen for 3 hours before, and not even know sometimes what it was. You never heard that. There was a fade at that ID moment or whatever. Schedules were outdated on every magazine. You would have schedules that were like 2 months behind. There were tons of stations that had changed frequencies. Plus, in the 80s, they would change frequencies 4 times a year instead of 2. And you know what? Today, hey, what am I listening to? You just punch in that frequency on YouTube, on Google or whatever, or go one of your favorite websites. And it's like, oh, that's that station. And you're like, it's so easy today compared to that time. We had it really rough back then. How many of you listened to a station back in the 70s or 80s and listened for an hour before knowing, oh, that is Radio Canada International. Oh, that is Radio Moscow. Okay. Of course, after listening for a while, you would get used to a style of broadcasting. So you would get to a station and it's like, oh, this must, an example, Radio Romania. I recognize Radio Romania in almost in any languages because it has a certain style of announcer that whatever the language, the first thing that comes up to mind is, oh, that must be Radio Romania in Spanish or in whatever other language. It has a style. Even if I didn't know Radio Romania had a new frequency and I would come across it without even having an ID, after a couple of minutes, I would like, that sounds like Radio Romania. Of course, there's the announcer's voice that we recognize all the time. So, of course, you do get that sense of knowing who is who on the bands, but I mean, a lot of the stations back then was like, I listened for 2 hours. I remember listening to Radio Australia for like, I think it's like an hour and a half. Before Radio Australia announcement was clear enough, at that moment, that was like, oh, this is Radio Australia. Okay. And it's kind of complicated because you have to listen to it. No, the one JK Shortwave Radio will not die. It'll always be there for some moment, for some reason. Matt says, I really wonder how far I would have gotten with the hobby if I had gotten into it the same time Joel did. I had a hard time researching topics like that at the library unless I was getting graded. I know one thing, that in the library back then there was no shortwave books. There was nothing about shortwave. There were a few books about radio in general, TRF, the from France and stuff like that. But most of what I learned was from books here and there, and then seeing books that I could buy that would talk about radio. And one of the things that was nice back then also, a lot of the radio stations would actually have booklets about radio subjects. One of them was Radio Netherlands. Radio Netherlands was great. You could say, hey, I listened to your programs, blah, blah, blah. And then you would say, I heard on your broadcast that you had a booklet on radio propagation, how it works. And you'd get that booklet with your QSL card and all of that. These were great times. And so these books, these little booklets, these little pamphlets would actually explain to me what shortwave was all about and all that's happening. It was kind of cool. Honestly, it was kind of cool. Tristan Patty says, I'm new to shortwave. It blows me away when you can just string up a long wire antenna and pick up stations from all over the world. No massive network infrastructure required. That's true. It is amazing. We forget, us older and long-time listeners, we forget. I sometimes sit down and say, you know what? You lost that magic of, hey, you're listening to Voice of Turkey or whatever, and it's from far away on a signal, and it's got, you're receiving it on a loop on your balcony or a sloper in the backyard. By the way, talking of long distance stations, Spain should be in English right now, 9690. Yep.
Climate, it was Valencia's musical climate that captured you.
Definitely, yes.
Spain in English, 9690 kilohertz.
The climate is always number one for me, but absolutely, if music wouldn't be here, I wouldn't stay. So I really like the musical environment in Valencia, and the level of musicians is really great in Spain.
Valencia indeed has a very strong music tradition, as you know, since you now live there. You're an honorary Valencian, and of course there are dozens and probably hundreds of marching bands who parade through the streets during fiestas, and there are wonderful musicians like, for instance, Benito Sabert, who in fact plays saxophone on a couple of tracks of the album Stories. You should mention the other musicians on Stories, because that's the album that I have been have in my hands and have been able to listen to. For instance, Alberto Palau, who plays the piano, Alex Cesarini on bass, Mariano Steinberg on drums, and Israel Sandoval plays guitar on 2 tracks. That's right. So there are the 5 of you.
So that's Spain in English, 9690 kilohertz. They are on in English 3 times a week on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And so that is the English language. By the way, I just posted the information if you want to do a little donation, if you like what I do, if you've enjoyed the show. It's much appreciated. Costs money to do this show. Faster internet connection. There's equipment to buy. I regularly need to replace lighting systems. I'll soon need to be buying a new computer. And there's so many things that actually are that need to be maintained. And I'm here every Fridays. Think about it as maybe a subscription thing. It could be a once a year donation, whatever. If you enjoy what I do, I enjoy doing it. It's fun to do it. I know a lot of you are enjoying this moment and enjoying this, geeky radio time. So why not think about a donation? And helps me out, and it's much appreciated. Thank you so much for those that have donated. I'm trying to reach here to those that never donated, that have been listening for years or watching for years. Tell me, hey, it's great. And you know what? If you don't use the electronic stuff for donations, you can send me a little something at officialshortwaveradio@gmail.com. There, I'll explain to you how you can send a donation with a international postal money order if you want. So hope you enjoy our show. It's here to, we're having fun. and we're here every week to promote the radio hobby in general. PageMaster, yes, we actually have an ID on the International Radio Report of Joe Walsh. That is an amateur radio operator, for sure. Simply says, I was thinking about those shortwave listeners who don't mingle with the community and always quiet. Sales of shortwave radio surpass the numbers of active shortwave listeners across the platform. And you got to think, I mean, look at Texan that will be introducing a new line of shortwave receivers. If they do that, it's because people out there are actually buying radios, for sure. You know? Matambali says, finding radio fascinating is probably the best motivator to learn difficult material. For sure. That's for sure. Matt says, as it was, the expense was a major obstacle when I was a kid. Even then, I think Radio Shack sold most of the shortwave cable receivers for $50 on the low end, which was comparable to $200 to $300 today. Yeah. Yep. You know, I mean, my DX100 was $100 in 1982, which is probably something like $200-300 today in actual dollars, but it's a crappy radio when you look at it compared to what we have today. Rufus Newt says, CW kept me from getting my license for years. I just had problems. And, you know, it's totally understandable also. John Pickney says, CW kept me unlicensed for about 15 years. Here we go. Simply says, CW is always an option for people who want to know it. Absolutely. They should, and, you know, it should be maintained. There should be a certain number of people, a certain minimum of people that would, you know CW or Morse code, for sure. Almay Sam says, well, I got licensed. CW is still a requirement. Cool. Cool. I mean, come on, you know. This is so cool. What else do we have? PageMaster has a Morse code t-shirt. Oh, that's nice. I like to have that. We should have one in Morse code that says FU, if you know what I mean, in Morse code. So everybody just looks at it, it's like, yep, I'm just FU. John Todd Jr., WB5HHT, nice to have you on board from Texas. Pretty cool. Auditor's Ali Crafter's Kitchen. Spot on regarding CW. My dad had been an operator since the 50s. Ever since I can remember, I've maybe seen him use code a couple of times. He thought codeless was great, and when FCC changed. You know, kind of cool. Oh, Imad Abbas got his new Texan S8800 this week. You like it? You like it? Yeah, anything that does get people in the hobby is great. Absolutely, my friend. John Todd Jr., reason for CW is that in really bad conditions or very low power, CW is the last communication that we'll go through. That was true until a certain time, John. But if you look at the new digital modes, FT8, for example, you'd be surprised. FT8 will even go further than CW sometimes, because the computer's algorithms are capable of discerning communication through the noise. So we are today in a time where communications, digital communications, for example, is at par, if not better, than CW. Because for a long time, you're totally right. You might not understand voice communications, but CW was possible. Now, at another extreme, let's add that, CW could still be useful, because in times where maybe you don't have a computer, but you have a really weak signal from some type of communications, that would be, of course, a great way of still communicating. That's for sure. So these are things you got to remember. for sure. Matt says, eventually I found other interests that I could afford and only looked at again 30 years later. Wish I had gotten something in the 90s at least. William Moser, nice to have you here. Keegan says, is Dad introduced to Shortwave? Cool. Cool. Jeff, KD5QDO, nice to have you on board from Southeast Texas. Pretty cool. Yeah, Matt, I got a Marshall amp here, a Evolve State 8080 for my guitar. It has actually two modes in it. It has a transistor amplifier and a tube-driven amplifier also for both sounds, for people that want to have one or the other, which is kind of nice. Sacariento says, when I first started watching your Windows videos, I thought you were Spanish too. Oh, man. Yeah, Maglone, you're right. We're all the same. We're all great people just wanting to have fun with our hobby, honestly. John Pigner says, and you never know who is a ham. At the coffee time after worship this past Sunday, our substitute pastor goes and says, I was KA1GFZ back in the 80s. So you never know, absolutely. You know, because one of the biggest things about this is that a lot of us don't really talk about our hobby much. So we don't really know because, honestly, how many times will you in a conversation say, hey, I'm a ham radio operator? You know, when will I go somewhere and have fun with friends and say, I listen to Shortwave? No, I'm not going to look like the strangest, bizarre guy in the world if I do that, honestly. Brent says, rest assured your efforts are greatly appreciated. Try to join your YouTube show every week and look forward to listening to the International Radio Report. Thank you, Brent. Thank you. Kimberly says, hola, Eduardo. I mean, Jill. Oh, God. D1DJK says, that's why this radio show by Jill is so important. We can share knowledge, learn something, or generally just get new information about a hobby. Absolutely. Matt intends to learn code, though. You know, I hear code, I can decode a little bit. Honestly, I'm proud of myself when, without any software, I listened to that ham operator calling CQ, repeating his call 2 or 3 times, and being capable by ear of knowing what his call sign is. There's something cool about it. Listening to that code, and it's like, oh, that's K1 whatever, you know. Calvin Morgan says, I remember the early 80s on a CB. I wrote a program in basic language using Dragon 32 home computer and had a PTT relay and was a custom private chat software program for CB. Cool. Chris Saxon says, yes, the shortwave radio stations of old. I remember listening to Radio South Africa on my Evolve radio AR88D. Little music jingled and bird song fading in and out. Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, man. John Pigney says, in the old days, sometimes it took months for a mystery to be identified. Example, XEJNOP was wildly heard on shortwave, but nobody knew where it was for ages because it never gave a QTH. Sid Vic learned Morse code from a cassette tape from Radio Shack. Wow. And the rest from W1AW broadcasts. D1AJK says, Radio Netherlands, I got much booklets about the radios. Yeah, they even had radio reviews. Matt says, you're getting RE much better than I am. Even 12030 is weak. That's a good one to copy when 9690 isn't. This week hasn't been that great in propagation, honestly. Matt says 12030 is not bad now. Matambali says we should ask a QSL card from the power company. Imagine writing to those Chinese companies saying, yes, I was receiving noise from your switching power supply from my neighbor. Could you QSL, please? Super 20 Dan, nice to have you here. Tried my friend's MFJ 1886 loop. Amazing difference. Getting one soon. Cool. Tony Turtle says took me 2 or 3 years to be able to copy. It's learning another language, you know. It's really learning another language. Honestly, it's really like learning another language. Civic says Joe Walsh gets mentioned now and then on the Ham Nation Twit program. By the way, for those that don't know, the Ham Nation program on Twit is also relayed via WTWW on 5085 on Wednesdays. You can also listen in on Shortwave. John Pickney, would the new Texan radios be better than old ones? My PL880 est une pièce de... Really? You don't like your PL880? It isn't bad as a radio in general. Interesting. And a lot of reports I get is that a PL880 isn't too bad at all. You know, we're getting into a point where it's very difficult to improve upon what we have as receivers, honestly. We probably push the limits of these radios to the max, and the next level of it is DSP. A lot of people don't like DSP units, but honestly, it will be somewhat of the future. I mean, I look at the Yisu here. There are times I think it receives better because it has a DSP in it that kind of removes some of the noise. It kind of has that capability. And I think that could be something of the future for some receivers that might actually improve our hobby. But on sensitivity, we've reached kind of a point where being more sensitive isn't helping anymore. It's the radios we have, and a lot of them are amazingly sensitive. I mean, I look at the PL380. That thing is more sensitive than my DX100 from 1982, and it's just amazing that a $40 radio beats the hell out of a radio that cost $182, which means $200, $300, $400 today. Matt says, that's the thing, Joe, about those old radios. If I had spent that much and gotten a little in return, I probably would have gotten frustrated enough to never give it another chance. But the difference, you know what, Matt? The difference, if I had the DX100 today, I never would have gone into the hobby today. But the problem is in 1982, there were so many stations on shortwave, and almost every international service had a North American service, that even if it was crappy, there were still tons of things to listen to compared to today. So the crappiness of the radio was mitigated by the abundance of signals that was on the bands. Firefly, here in an idea how about licensed hams to call you on HF and have a QSO on HF internet. Can you rephrase that? I'm not sure I understand exactly what you want or you're saying. You mean kind of, because you could call CQ on a frequency and try to contact somebody else, and I can try to get you here on the SDR. Kevin Wood says, I had to do 15 words per minute to get my advanced license. Nice. They do have a t-shirt that says, okay, that's kind of nice. CQFU. CQFU. I'm gonna have, like, if you can read this, I love you. If you can't, F you. Take care, D1 DJK. Always nice to have you on board from Germany, my friend. Simplio says FT8 kicking CW into the mud. Yes, it is. But you got to remember, CW is still welcome, because if there's no computers around, you're not going to be decoding FT8 with your ears. You'll need CW for that. So it's still, for humans, it's good. Ellen321, nice to have you on board from Norway, my friend. John Pickney says, my daughter takes shortwave for granted as she grew up with it. Today, when she hears Toronto or other Canadian FMs in Brockport, New York, she's probably really happy, I would guess. She'll text me. That's nice. So she has a little part of that flame of, oh, this is so cool. I'm getting stationed from so far away. Bullfrog89 just made up some business cards for a convention I'm going next month. On the back, it lists some information about me. The fact that I'm licensed is on the list. Cool. WF7I. People under 50 typically have no idea what ham radio is. Explaining it can be awkward. It is very awkward. Totally. I mean, it's kind of it's like, I don't know how many times people on my personal Facebook page saw, oh, you're listening to these stations from far away. What exactly is that? Or somebody watched, because I post the link to the live show on my Facebook feed. Somebody, when they watched, a guy I know, and said, what's that all about? The radio stuff you do on the live show and the stations you get. And you start talking for about a minute, and then you notice that they're kind of yawning. It's getting boring. And you're like, yeah, okay. I'm going to stop talking about the radio. I don't want to bore you. Yeah, the Dragon 32, the TRS 80 color computer. Absolutely fast load. Oh man. It's just crazy. What else do we have? Let's go down a little bit. One thing, it says the FCC used to use funeral director on the 13 word permanent code test. Oh God. WF7I says, my first radio book was the 1982 ARRL handbook. Still have it. Was totally over my head, but fascinating. Later I got Tune in the World with ham radio, novice license manual, and was hooked. Media Mike, nice to have you on board from Adelaide, South Australia. We miss Radio Australia, man. It was such a pleasant thing to listen to on the shortwave bands. So sad that it's gone. Yeah, there's a couple of new shows, absolutely. 5085 WTWW. Listen in regularly at night, because there's a few different ham radio shows. And David says, you're selling QRM from a switching power supply. Frequency 3 to 3 megahertz. Mode all of them. 55555 was the simple code. Matthew Wells, nice to have you here. Oh, God. Federal Communications sold off 2 meter bandwidth in the USA. Oh, man. Paulo's Records, nice to have you here. Says he loves his PL880. You know what, Jerry, you need to do? Take the time to create interesting content that has explanations of stuff, not just tuning a frequency range or something. It will make and accelerate the subscriber count. It's you know, I've never gone to any other channels and I'm not complaining here, but going to other channels to ask for viewer subscriptions. I've never done that. If you want to have subscribers, take the time to do content. The best way you can do it. Kevin Morgan says, I always thought that I would forget Morse code after not using it for 20 years, but it's so strange. I can still listen to CW and it just all starts coming back. Yeah, I think it's like riding a bike. You never forget about it, honestly. John Pickney says, my PL880 was great when new, then it went toes up without warning after about a year after I got it. Interesting. Maybe you had some kind of defect, because I have many Texan radios here, and apart from the PL680 that had that problem with the encoder that froze and is a little off in frequency. All the Texans I had were pretty good radios. My original PL600 from many years ago still works perfectly. Jerry DX, I need a Seacrane Skywave SSB. Interesting. I need to check that out. I have no Seacranes. Maybe I should check that out. Matt says, Dan, getting back to 1.25 band, I looked up 220 megahertz at HRO website and came back with 3 transceivers in total. Do any of the hams here get on that band at all? I tell you, it's very, very, very... 220 is not used much. I have 220 here on... we have a repeater in Montreal, and there's very little activity, honestly. So you know what happens is that you get to a point where it's not just the lack of activity, but the lack of radios that have it on. Kelvin Morgan, question, is Morse code an early form of digital communications way before computers? Well, we can call it a digital mode because it's dots and dashes, so it's like zeros and ones. So we can kind of say that it could be the first ever digital mode that existed. But it wasn't a digital mode, or it wasn't taught of digital mode back then. It was a it was simply a way of communications that was invented a long time ago, way before any of that technology stuff. John Pickney says, ages ago, I used to have a regular SCAD with N2SJ discussing our shortwave listening. He became SK on 9/11. Oh, man. So sorry. Yeah, it's more of a binary communications, but not digital, or it's not necessarily a digital mode because of Jay Watterson 69, nice to have you here, my friend. There were so many interesting manuals from the And by the way, Jerry, I'm not complaining or anything. I mean, if you would not be a regular, I'd be annoyed, but I'm not annoyed at you asking for subscribers. That's okay. I mean, some people come here never showed up in the past and say, hey, subscribe to me. Yeah, go to hell. You're okay. It's no problem there. But try to diversify the content, Jerry. You'll see that it could be very surprising. John Pinkney, the VIC-20 computer in North America was sold as the VC-20 in Germany because the VIC is in German, sort of like the state dance of South Carolina being an obscenity in the UK. Yeah, that was my first computer, the VIC-20. Man, I had fun with that. So much fun with that. Take care, John McClure. J. Wardison 69 here, putting cats in your videos. Yeah, a cat on every radio, and your channel is gonna skyrocket. Why does everybody think I was Spanish for some reason? That's interesting. Now you guys are making me kind of making me wonder why you guys thought I was Spanish. Oh God. It's just funny. So Jerry, you owe me a beer if you're 100. Oh God. Well, for you guys, talking of old computers. So below the ton of trash here, there's a Commodore 128, and here there's a Atari 1040 ST, and here there's an Amiga 500, all in working order on this screen, by the way. So I can actually turn them on. So I can do this, just turn this one on. I can do this, just take the disc out. I'm sure there's no discs here. And I've got so many, does this one gonna turn on here. Yeah, there we go. And might as well turn the other one on and show you guys every screen. I'm going to take the books off here and plug in the Commodore. I do believe this one has a Pac-Man game on it. So here we go. So now, if I use the remote control, you guys can see that on the TV side of things. I have the Atari right here. That is the computer here. And then I go down to not HDMI, the video port. There we go. And I've got an AV switch there for all of that. So I've got, let me just check it out here, the Amiga waiting for a disc to be inserted. Let's try it out. I think there's a disc here. So here's Fire and Brimstone, a game. And for the Commodore, I need to, there's a power connector problem in the Commodore. So I need to wiggle it a little bit from time to time. And if I, Fire and Brimstone has a read error on disk block 889. Oh, really? So here we go. I've got the Pac-Man one here. That's on the Commodore 128. There we go. And now back to our usual business as we are talking about shortwave radio. So here we go. So all of these computers are in working order on this TV here. So pretty cool. I do have a gaming channel that I just left behind, Zachary Antle. I do. Jay Bartison, Mr. Zellweyer, latest excursion DXing in the park. Were you bothered by the authorities? Any stories of the outing? No, it was very, very quiet. Actually, there was no. I was surprised because there's always a police there, and there was none on that afternoon. I can tell you that. You know. Jerry Shell is so successful in his channels and videos. He's the envy of YouTube. No, come on. I'm a small YouTuber compared to so many YouTubers. I want to say who I'm envy when somebody tells, hey, I got 100 million subscribers. Yeah, okay. PewDiePie, that's the whoa. But you know, I got enough. Let's just say I got enough subscribers to make a living out of it, and enough views for it. Dominic Sinclair. Oh God, wow. My accent sounds Spanish to the uninitiated. Okay. Oh, interesting. Okay. Okay. Kind of interesting. But you know, I'm just so... I'm not surprised, Firefly. Brian Rick screaming lords such as King Hussein of Jordan were radio hams. There's a lot more radio hams than we think in the you can be anonymous there. You can just have contacts with regular folks. I was hearing I remember reading an article about how the Queen of England is a big fan of chatting on groups. So imagine one night you chat with someone and you just didn't know that it was a Queen of England. Kind of funny when you think about it. And it's a great way to kind of keep in touch. Matambali says, something else about Joel. He's not a cranky long-term YouTuber. He's a gentleman. Oh, wow. Thank you so much, Matambali. Yeah, well, you know, it's Canadian French. That's a little different than the accent that we have with the French when they speak English. Sam used to run an Amiga 500 to drive TNC for VHF packet. Oh, cool. Oh, absolutely, Matt. Absolutely. There's an accent and certain words that I use, absolutely, and you try to find out. You know, I get at least a couple of comments a week about you from, you know, whatever. Yes, John McNay. The Amiga was actually, they had a thing called a video toaster on the Amiga, and in the 80s, a lot of visual effects were done with an Amiga. And by the way, if anybody has ever seen Max Headroom, what's the name of that song? Oh man. It was by the Art of Noise. The name of the group from the 80s was Art of Noise. Paranomia. It was called Paranomia. The animated guy there was Max Edrum. The group would call him Max Edrum. Was totally done on Amiga 500. Well, an Amiga, not a 500 necessarily, but an Amiga with video toaster. It was the capabilities of that machine. Actually, the Amiga 500 for 1985 was probably what was the most powerful computer that existed for consumer use. It was very, very powerful because it had a lot of custom chips that would make graphics faster and better. The Atari 1040 ST actually came out at the same time and was kind of competition. Honestly, the Amiga 500 is a million times better than the Atari for the same things that it could do. David says, not everyone. I'm Spanish myself and I never thought of you, Shell, as a compatriot. In fact, in the beginning, I thought you were from somewhere in the US, given the signals you received. Ah, nice. Mixed Radio International, 6886. And by the way, guys, I don't know if you've seen, but... oh, Spain and French. 6886. Am I getting anything? Nothing right now. Anyways, anybody of you that have seen on my channel today, Mixed Radio International actually commented on the videos that I posted about Mixed Radio International and said thank you for listening in. So it's pretty cool. Bullfrog, oldest piece of electronics I have here, circa 1931. General Radio Modulation Monitor out of WMAL in Washington. Wow. Yeah, I know, Jerry, I need to bring it back. There are two channels I need to bring back. My Android channel, which is this close to being monetized. And maybe I should go back to that. I mean, I left it alone and not doing anything anymore. I should, absolutely. Simply, it sounds just like the arcade machines of Pac-Man and the laundromats we were in the 80s. Yep. Zacharianto says, speaking of gaming and radio, I found a video of the transcripts of the Morse code from the Titanic as she sank, and I'm setting the Queen Mary in fire in Minecraft. Oh, God. Charlie Weaver was a ham. Hard Bell was a ham. Yeah, I know Hard Bell was a ham. Tim Hallen was a ham, yes. John Pigney says my accents sound Québécois to me. Then again, I remember when Boulevard René Lévesque was Boulevard Dorchester. Yep, absolutely. I remember that. Yeah, The Art of Noise, Paranomia. Jerry says, I promise I will never mention about my subscriber count on your channel. Oh, no, don't. It's okay, Jerry. I don't apologize. I got no problem with that, okay? If I really had a problem with that, I would have been mad. It's, I don't know. Anyways, it's okay. No hard feelings, okay? You're an okay guy, and I got no problem with that. It's just, you know, I would be, you know, anyways, you guys have seen there were some guys that came to the channel and it's like, hey, I need subscribers, you know, like, oh, shut up, you know. I don't mind, Jerry. There's no competition, honestly. There's no competition in what I do. It's interesting because, you know what, I won't mention his name, but there's another YouTuber that does radio stuff, and came to me one day and said, you know, I look at your views, and I was thinking, well, I'm going to beat that guy. You know, talking about me, he wants to beat my viewer count, my views every month, and I found it funny because I'm not in competition mode. None of my channels I use or I think of as a competition with anybody else. The only thing I view on my channels is trying to, you know, probably that's the only thing you want too, Jerry, is getting more subscribers and getting more views every month, and that's it. So, you know, it's quite all right. I don't, there's, like I said, there's no competition for me here. But it's interesting because when that person came to me, I thought, wow, that's competition. You want to beat me. That's what your drive, wanting to beat my views and my... And it's funny because as I am saying I was not in competition, it made me get ideas and do stuff on the channel, thinking, you know what, let's have a little fun. You're saying you're reaching me. I'll do some stuff and see if. And he came back to me about 6 months later after that and said, wow, I was getting close to you. And then you started posting new videos of different things and subjects. And now you're like 4 times the views that I have every month. You have just blown away. And I'm really far and I'm not reaching. And I guess, I do have a competition. I have a competitive side to myself, honestly. If somebody dares me to beat their view count, yeah, okay, let's have fun. Let's have fun. I'm okay with that. But at the most basic level, I am not in competition with anyone. And you know what? That guy from Finland I was talking earlier, I think the reason he was frustrated is because he was in competition mode. Instead of doing YouTube, I do this for fun. But instead of doing this for fun, he did this for, I am the best and I want to be the best and I'm going to do the best. And try to beat everybody else. And he got annoyed at the fact that he never was able to beat me. And his thoughts were, my videos of high quality, so I should beat him. And I'm not. And he came to a reasoning that I must be cheating for some way, or no, I'm just having fun. I'm not cheating in any way. Google and YouTube are not done. Try gaming them. Try gaming the system. Try cheating. I can tell you, they really know. And if you try to game YouTube or game Google, they actually are going to push you down rather than give you more. Any website that tries to game with, for example, somebody asked me the other day, about 6 months, not even 3 or 4 months ago, YouTube did a big scan of the channels. And he warned everybody, we are looking at the channels that have fake views from robots. Because you can pay for views on the internet for those that want to do it. Which I never did, and I don't know why you should do that. Because anyways, it's fake. And 3 months ago, they looked at the channels and said, you know what? We know the robots out there that do fake views. We are going to readjust your view count and subscriber count. So if you see that your views are down and your subscriber count is down, it's because there's a lot of bots. Well, they scanned mine and they put that little warning in every channel I had for about a week, saying we were reviewing your subscriber count and views. You might have a surprise that everything's lower, but then didn't change a thing. Why? Because I don't use that. There's no sense in, why do you want to use bots for more views, or, it's not even it's just dumb. Why? It's so much more interesting. And I'm so much more proud of, I got those views because what I do is, people like what I do. Simply. And you know what? There's, when the count of 1,000 subscribers before you can monetize. And there was the number of hours, 4,000 hours of views in the past year. A lot of people came to me and said, wow, it's sad because I was doing stuff, and yeah, but at the same time, if you put your heart at it, having 1,000 subs 4,000 hours of views the past year isn't that difficult on YouTube, honestly. Making a living off of YouTube is another thing. But that basic level, and what prevents a lot of people from actually reaching that goal is much more their personal life. You work, you do a lot of stuff, so you don't take a lot of time. I concentrated myself in this is my job. So I decided I would put 40 or 50 hours a week on it. When you do that, well, you get results also, you know. Okay, let's go down a little bit. What else do we have? What else do we have? Yeah, Max Headroom. Famous signal. Yeah, there was that hijacking thing that happened. I remember a long time ago with Max Headroom. Yeah. I remember that. Jay Watterson, on the Amiga, I had a 2400 baud modem. I had a JVC external 2400 baud modem with all the little red lights in front that I always found cool to have all the lights there. Don't worry, Keegan, it's alright. I mean, you guys have fun. If you guys, subscribe to each other, it's perfect. No problem. I got no problem with that. I'd rather it be you guys than some nobody that never comes to the channel. What really makes me mad is a nobody that comes on the channel and that says, I'm so lonely, I got no viewers. Yeah, just shut up, It's pretty much like that. Charity X says, it's amazing the frequencies that Joe catches on his sloper and how his loop antenna. Pretty amazing for your location. Yeah, it is amazing. Absolutely. I'm in the middle of the city and, it's kind of hard. Nissan Greenwich, nice to have you on board from Dublin, Ireland. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. Jeffrey Prop, nice to have you on board from New Hampshire. Pretty cool. Take care, Rufus Newt. It's nice to have you on board. Sluvian, nice to have you on board from Scotland. John Pigney says, one afternoon, after a few beers, too many, we butchered a VIC modem to copy HF and RTTY with my unit and portable receive, a speaker wire sloper off our tower and software tied to our typed out of a magazine. Yeah, there was a lot of these things, and on the Commodore I had the cartridge for SWL that would do CW, RTTY, and AmTor. Greenbean 78, what antenna do you use for your SDR dongle? I use the stock antenna. Came with, does it okay. Love the channel, by the way. Thank you very much, Greenbean. Well, this is not a dongle. It's a little black box that's called the SDR Play RSP1A. And basically used, right now it's a W6 LVP magnetic loop antenna. But I also have a 75 feet, roughly 22 meter long sloper antenna in my backyard also that I use for shortwave. But I do have dongles. I mean, I think I got one here not far from this area. I saw it the other day. Pretty sure it can't be very, very far from here. I don't see it now, and I pretty much saw it. I do have this. And maybe I should, I'm not using this off 66. Maybe I should do a giveaway for people. Would you guys like a giveaway of a soft 66 HF shortwave VHF soft 66 RTL2? I don't use it anymore. I'm trying to find a dongle, but I don't see it right now. But I got a little blue dongle VHF. It's an RTL. Oh, it's here. I didn't see it. Here's a dongle. I use it with my Samsung phone to decode the plane's transponder to see them on the map. Kind of fun. Jay Watterson, told you, Joe, cats boost subs. Oh, man. Jerry, just do the channel for fun. Try to put funny content to make people laugh and make me smile. Continue, man. Don't stop doing it. That's very important. Don't stop doing it. WRMI 93.95. Let's check it out. 93.95. 95. How about it here? That was pretty good. Pretty good. 93.95. Very strong here. S9 is 9 plus 10. I'll make some of my channels safe. James Parley, nice to have you here. From Central New Jersey. Simply on YouTube, that's about being flashy all the time, isn't as nice as a channel owned and by a down-to-earth, real everyday person with good heart. Thank you, Simply. Sidvic 9330, still strength 9 here. 9330 is not very strong, but it's a little better than earlier though. 9330. WBCQ, it's a little better. S8. I'm at S8 on WBCQ, S9 even now. When they're 500 kilowatt transmitter. Cherry says, if I can contribute and people like it, so be it. But watch your channel before mine. Oh, please. It's not a question of better content or not, Cherry. Don't worry about it. Firefly, I would like to have honest subscribers and a low number than have lots of fake ones. Yeah, absolutely. No, YouTube does not have a pension plan. You gotta yourself think about a pension plan if you want to do YouTube. John Pigney says, what happens to folks like you with YouTube when somebody gets the no commercial service from YouTube? Are you still compensated somehow? Actually, it's so the way it works on YouTube, of course, for those that wonder, there are ads on YouTube, of course. Some of you probably know. These ads, if you watch them, are what monetizes the content. If you skip the ad, there's no money given when you skip the ad. If you use a ad blocker, of course you're getting on the channel and there's no monetization at all. Ad blockers stop the monetization, so I get nothing if you use an ad blocker all the time watching the content. And that's why I always say, if you like people's content, whitelist the channels you love, so that the ads can go through. I got no problems with people using ad blockers. Where I have a problem probably more is when people use ad blockers everywhere, because you gotta remember one thing, is that the content on the internet isn't free. It's monetized somehow, and that's why content exists. If there would be no ads at all in the internet, you guys would have to pay subscriptions for everything you see. It wouldn't be better. So, it's rather to watch an ad about something you don't like than to subscribe because you got to pay from your pocket. So I always say, whitelist what you like, so that these ads go through on what you like, and you can keep it on, because there are some websites that are darn annoying with ads. And I totally understand why some people use ad blockers. If somebody has YouTube Red, so if you pay a subscription, a monthly subscription for YouTube Red, so you see no ads anymore, every time somebody on YouTube Red comes and watches my video, I get something. So your subscription that you pay for is actually giving me a little something when you watch one of my videos, or if you watch the live shows. That's the way it works. Yep, you gotta have 1,000 subscribers plus 4,000 hours of views in the past year to be monetized. And even then, it's not automatic. You got to be approved for sure. Take care, Almesam. It was nice to have you on board, my friend. What else do we have? What else do we have? Let me go down here a little bit. See if we are missing out on anything. Yeah, when there's ads, that's the bad thing about maybe YouTubers that aren't yet there, is that when you are non-monetized and there are ads in front of your videos, YouTube and Google makes all the money. If it's for VHF, UHF, you know what, the depends what you want to do with it, honestly. WF7I, got a small number of radio videos on my channel, only 50 subs, but I still fun, even just for myself. And you got to start out like this, honestly. You got to start out like this. The first thing that I always tell anybody that wants to be a YouTuber, start by having fun. Post videos. And if it brings you somewhere else that you might not think of, then you know what? It's cool. Yeah, ADS-B radar. I like the VHF stuff on the when I hook up the RTL dongle. Take care, Brent. It's nice to have you on board. Sean Pinckney would like to see the ERP of the WBCQ 500 kilowatt rig. Oh man. Yeah, our YouTube Red gives a little something. You're paying to get no ads, but the subscription fee gives a little something to YouTubers. K6YL says, I have YouTube Red. I like it. I can just listen and disable the screen. It uses less data for me when I'm walking around the city. Sean Pinckney, when I lived in Vienna back in the 1980, birds would drop out of the sky when flying too close to the RF site. I'm pretty sure that if birds fly too close to that 500 kilowatts on 9330, they're probably going to have they're going to be fried up. So hey guys, we've been on for 3 hours and 4 minutes. I'm going to go and start. I got steaks and a little bottle of wine. And I want to just take it easy for the rest of the afternoon or the evening. Listen a little bit on the shortwave bands, tune around. Listen in, guys. Pirates probably tonight, tomorrow. Tune around the bands. Don't forget paypal.me/shortwave or the Yahoo email that I put here if you enjoy our show. And once again, Jerry and everybody else that were getting subscribers, it's quite alright. I love you guys, and I got no problem with that. And if Jerry, if you reach 100 subs, cool, congratulations. YouTube, of course, every Fridays, 2000 UT. You can send me donations through PayPal.me/shortwave, Yahoo email, or become a patron at patreon.com/radio and computers. And of course, hope you enjoyed today's show. We talked about so many things today. Kind of interesting, going with the flow of the chat room. So I guess I'll be talking about my favorite stations next week. And well, now you all know I am not Spanish or anything. And hope you enjoyed the show today. It's always nice to have everybody on board. Stay safe, my friends. Love you all. and listen to your radios. It's important. And don't forget to listen to all of the singles out there. I'll be doing that after my dinner tonight. Take care, my friends. Love you all. Always nice to be here. Next show, Friday, July 12th, already at 2000 hours Universal Time. Stay safe and take care. Bye bye.